Beautiful. And once we're familiar with setup, of course, now I would just want to grab my data and display my whole list. So that's going to be the starting point where instead of setting up the pages or something along those lines, I would just want to display the whole list. And that is something, of course, we have done, I don't know, 20 or 30 times already in the course. So I think we should be fairly comfortable. What we're looking for are the loading and data from my use fetch custom hook. So I'll destructure it right away, loading and then data. And that is coming from my use fetch custom hook. Awesome. And then if you want to double check, just go with console log and then data. And you should see 100 items. So I'm going to go with localhost, my pagination starter. Of course, I didn't change anything in the UI, but in the console, in the beginning, I have 0 because, of course, we're still loading. And then eventually we'll have the array of 100 items. Awesome. And once that is in the play, then, of course, I'm going to go with my return. And then instead of the heading 2, I'm going to go with main tags. And I'll start with my sectional title. So div with a class of section title. And as far as the loading, I wanted to spice things up. And we're not going to have 2 returns like we normally had. And I'm just going to go with loading inside of the heading 1. So there's going to be a heading 1 inside of my section title. And then in here, I'm just going to check for loading. If we're loading, then I'll display loading dot dot dot. So that's going to be my text. So loading dot dot dot. And then if we're not loading, then we're just going to go with pagination. So whatever title you would want. And then since I'm obsessed with my underlines, I'm going to go with underline and I should see that we're loading. And then eventually we have the pagination. And now, of course, I would want to display those followers. So we're going to go here with a section and then the class will be followers. No surprises over here. And then once I have my section, then of course I would want to have a container. So there with the class of container and we have our followers. And at the moment, of course, I don't have that state value. So eventually there's going to be followers. That's why I started typing that. But for time being, let's just go with data and then map. And then for every follower, I would want to return my follower component. So I'm going to go here with my parameter follower, and then I would want to return a follower component. Now we need to have the key. And if you check out the object that you're getting from the data, and you can obviously see it here in the browser right away, they have already the ID property with some kind of value. So that's what I'm passing here in the key. I'm just going to say follower and then ID. And then remember the spread operator, dot, dot, dot. And then we just pass in the data that is in the follower. I'll close my follower component. And then, of course, for time being, we'll just have all these heading 2s because that's what I have in the follower JS. So let me navigate there to follower JS. And as far as the structuring, what properties am I looking for? I would want to show the avatar URL. So that is the image. Also, I would want to get HTML URL. So link that points back to that specific GitHub user and also login. So that is going to be the nickname or username, however you would want to call it. So let's navigate back. We'll destructure that. I'm going to say avatar and then underscore URL. Then I'm going to go with HTML underscore URL and eventually also a login. And once we destructure these 3 things, I'm going to go with my article. And of course, we'll make this pretty. So I'm going to add a class of card that is coming from my CSS. And then in here, let's go with image. And as far as the source, let's pass in the avatar underscore URL. That is the property that is responsible for the image. Then I also would want to display the login like so. Then the heading 4. And I'm going to go with login over here. So let's go here with a login like so. So we should have already cards with some kind of name. And then eventually I would want to display a link that points back to the user. So we go with href. This is going to be, of course, the HTML underscore URL. And then just because I would want to add a little bit of CSS, we're going to go with class name and then btn. And as a value, as a text value, I'm going to go with view and then profile. We save, we can navigate to bigger screen. And then, of course, we have the list of the followers. Again, whether that is 30, whether that is 5,000, whether that is 30,000, we have our whole list. Now, of course, we'll have to make things a bit more interesting and paginate our data.